Today we're finishing a short series called The Kingdom Advances, which is a study from Matthew 8 through Matthew 10. Next Sunday we're going to start another very brief series called The Kingdom Revealed, which is going to take us through Matthew 11 through 13. And all of this is part of a much larger year-long study through the Gospel of Matthew. Last week, we made it up through Matthew 9:34, and there are 4 verses at the end of Matthew 9 that we're going to look at, but I want to save that for that part for the end of the message. So as we look at Matthew chapter 10 today, this morning's sermon is going to be a little bit different. I'm going to read through chapter 10, kind of give you a little bit of an outline for the chapter, and just make some brief comments as we walk through it. And then again, we're going to come back to Matthew 9:35 through 38 at the end. So here's a little outline of Matthew 10, and we'll kind of walk through that. We'll put it up here in just a moment here. There we go. So we're going to start with Matthew 10, 1 through 4. We have the sending of the 12 in this section. So let's read Matthew 10, 1. Jesus called his disciples to him and gave them authority to drive out impure spirits and to heal every disease and sickness. So if you were here last week, we covered the end of Matthew 8 through most of Matthew 9, and we looked at how Jesus revealed unrivaled authority over every realm that was broken by sin. We saw that Jesus has authority over all creation, how he has authority even over the demons, authority to forgive sins, authority to use anyone, even the least likely, for his service, that he has authority to establish a new covenant, authority over disease and death, and how he has authority over what many people would see as things that are irreversible. And now, the one who has all this authority is giving authority to his 12 apostles. Now, just as a side note, we sometimes use the word disciple and apostle interchangeably, but they really aren't. They really aren't. So all the apostles were disciples. So there it can be used interchangeably, but not all disciples were apostles. Every follower of Jesus is a disciple of Jesus. But apostle really denoted those 12 that Jesus had selected. They were given a higher authority. And verse 2 tells us that these are the names of the 12 apostles. First, Simon, who is called Peter, and his brother Andrew, James, son of Zebedee, and his brother John, Philip and Bartholomew, Thomas and Matthew, the tax collector, the one writing this gospel, James, son of Alphaeus and Thaddeus, Simon the Zealot, and Judas Iscariot, who betrayed him. Now, after Judas had betrayed Jesus and hung himself, a man named Matthias was selected to replace Judas as one of the 12 apostles. And then Saul of Tarsus, also known as Paul, was also supernaturally selected by Jesus after his ascension to be an apostle as well, and he would be the apostle to the Gentiles. So what we're starting to see is the kingdom advance through these 12 men empowered by Jesus. Jesus sends them out on a mission. In verse 5 through 15, then, we have his mission instructions. Verse 5 says this, then these 12 Jesus sent out with the following instructions. Do not go among the Gentiles or any town of the Samaritans. Go rather to the lost sheep of Israel. So here we have the audience. They were to go to the lost sheep of Israel, which this really fits how the gospel was going to be carried forward. It was first to the Jew, then to the Gentile. Next, we have the message in verse 7. Jesus told them that as you go, proclaim this message. The kingdom of heaven has come near. And then we have their ministry. In verse 8, they were to heal the sick, raise the dead, cleanse those who have leprosy, drive out demons. Freely you have received, freely give. So Jesus gave the apostles authority to do some of these things that he was doing. But then we see the manner in which they were going to go on their mission in verses 9 and 10, and it sounds a little bit scary. Verse 9, Jesus tells them, do not get any gold or silver or copper to take with you in your belts, no bag for the journey or extra shirt or sandals or a staff, for the worker is worth his keep. So some of you have a summer vacation all planned out, and some of you are those planners. You have it all lined out. You have a detailed packing list. You have an agenda to work from. Like, you are my kind of people. I struggle when I'm packing to go on vacation because I'm like a Boy Scout, like always be prepared. And so I'm stuffing the minivan. Yes, I drive a minivan because I'm a soccer mom. I'm stuffing the minivan just full of stuff, just in case we need it, right? Or if I'm flying, like the zipper on my suitcase is about to break because I'm just cramming it full of stuff and I have to weigh the suitcase before I get going, right? But Jesus wasn't sending his apostles out with a long packing list. What was he trying to teach them? Dependency. They were learning dependency on God to provide for them. And their work would result then in provision from people as well, for the worker is worth his keep, he would say. Verse 11 continues, he says, whatever town or village you enter, search there for some worthy person and stay at their house until you leave. As you enter the home, give it your greeting. If the home is deserving, let your peace rest on it. If it is not, let your peace return to you. Many missionaries that go into parts of this world that are very hostile to the gospel, they'll talk about looking for a person of peace. They kind of draw this statement from where Jesus is sending out his disciples. I was talking with one of our missionaries who is ministering to a place where Christianity is outlawed. It is very hostile to the gospel. In fact, he was here about 1.5 years ago, and when he went back on the mission field, he was arrested. And so he was later released. And so in his most recent trip, which was just a couple months ago, he was talking about when they would go into an area that they'd not yet been ministering to yet, they would look for and they would pray for a person of peace, someone who was not hostile to the gospel, someone who would welcome them and welcome their work and help them carry out their work. So they were looking for that person of peace. Jesus goes on, verse 14, he tells his disciples, if anyone will not welcome you or listen to your words, leave that home or town and shake the dust off your feet. Truly, I tell you, it will be more bearable for Sodom and Gomorrah on the day of judgment than for that town. So in this section that we're looking at now, or about to look at, Jesus is going to highlight then the reality of opposition as they go out. In verse 16, he tells them, I'm sending you out like sheep among wolves. Therefore be as shrewd as snakes and as innocent as doves. So who are wolves? Wolves are intentional about the harm they would inflict upon sheep. They prey on them. And there are lots of wolves in our world. And so these apostles were instructed to be as shrewd as snakes, but as innocent as doves. And I think as elders of this church, this is a really good verse for us as we help to shepherd this congregation. As we serve this congregation and lead toward kingdom advancement in this hostile world, we have to be shrewd, to be wise, to know the tactics of the enemy, to be discerning, to not be gullible. But I'm just being honest with you, because there are wolves, I hate that we have to think about things like safety and security. I hate that we have to think about getting background checks on volunteers. I hate that we have to be on our guard for people who might want to intentionally harm the church with extremely false teachings or manipulation. But we do. I just want to preach the word and make disciples, but the reality is we live in a fallen world and we have to use discernment because there are wolves. The reality is this is why we need Jesus. So though we need to be shrewd about the ways of the world, we also must remain innocent of the ways of the world. We must live above reproach. And then Jesus warns his disciples. He says, be on your guard. You will be handed over to the local councils and be flogged in the synagogues. On my account, you will be brought before governors and kings as witnesses to them and to the Gentiles. But when they arrest you, do not worry about what to say or how to say it. At that time you will be given what to say, for it will not be you speaking, but the Spirit of your Father speaking through you. As I've been reading this over the last couple of weeks, and I read this section, all I could think about was, this really doesn't sound like the health and wealth gospel, does it? Like the prosperity gospel. Jesus tells his disciples, you will be handed over to these local councils. You will be flogged as I'm sending you out. And then he says, but when they arrest you, not if they arrest you, but when they arrest you. Again, they're being trained here to learn to rely on God while Jesus is still with them. Jesus then continues to warn his apostles of the reality of the hostile opposition that they're going to be walking into. Verse 21, he says this, brother will betray brother to death, and a father his child. Children will rebel against their parents and have them put to death. You will be hated by everyone because of me, but the one who stands firm to the end will be saved. If you are, it says when. When you are persecuted in one place, flee to another. Truly I tell you, you will not finish going through the towns of Israel before the Son of Man comes. Now let me pause here. That last verse there is a much debated statement that Jesus made. Some people have tried to correlate this passage with the second coming of Jesus when he returns. I think the context leans more toward viewing it as referring to the coming judgment on the Jews that would actually have happened when Jerusalem and the temple were destroyed in 70 AD. But Jesus continues, verse 24, the student is not above the teacher, nor a servant above his master. It is enough for students to be like their teachers and servants like their masters. If the head of the house has been called Beelzebul, which is a reference to Satan, how much more the members of his household? So again, Jesus is preparing his disciples. He's pressing into the reality for his disciples that they're going to be facing opposition to their ministry. The message of Jesus will be dividing because Satan is working in this world and he's working through people. This next section of Jesus' message to his disciples then emphasizes a call to fearless faith. Verse 26, Jesus says, so do not be afraid of them. He's talked about all this hostility. He says, so do not be afraid of them. For there is nothing concealed that will not be disclosed, or hidden that will not be made known. What I tell you in the dark, speak in the daylight. What is whispered in your ear, proclaim from the roofs. Do not be afraid of those who kill the body, but cannot kill the soul. Rather, be afraid of the one who can destroy both soul and body in hell. So often we fear the earthly consequences of following Jesus. The ridicule, the discomfort, loss of friendships, friction in the home, lack of money, and in other parts of the world, the fear of real persecution, imprisonment, torture, and even death. But Jesus is saying, don't fear those who can only do you physical harm. Rather, we should fear God, for he is the one who can destroy both soul and body in hell. And then Jesus reminds his apostles of his care for them. Verse 29, he says, are not 2 sparrows sold for a penny? Yet not one of them will fall to the ground outside your Father's care. And even the very hairs of your head are all numbered, which is a pretty difficult task for most people, and pretty easy task for the bald and the beautiful. Verse 31, so he says, so don't be afraid. You are worth more than many sparrows. This was a repeated message from the Sermon on the Mount. If God cares for the sparrows in this way, how much more does he care for people who have been created in his image? Verse 32, he warns, whoever acknowledges me before others, I will acknowledge before my Father in heaven. That's what we want. But whoever disowns me before others, I will disown before my Father in heaven. That's what we don't want. So we are not to be ashamed of God. Don't be ashamed to live up for him, to speak his name, to be bold, to be fearless of what humans might do. Instead, we're to have a healthy fear of God, but knowing that he cares for you. Then this next section is where we see the cost of following Jesus. Verses 34 through 39. And what Jesus is going to show us is that allegiance to Jesus should supersede every earthly relationship. Verse 34, he says, do not suppose that I have come to bring peace to the earth. I did not come to bring peace, but a sword. For I've come to turn a man against his father, a daughter against her mother, a daughter-in-law against her mother-in-law. A man's enemies will be the members of his own household. Anyone who loves their father or mother more than me is not worthy of me. Anyone who loves their son or daughter more than me is not worthy of me. Whoever does not take up their cross and follow me is not worthy of me. Whoever finds their life will lose it, and whoever loses their life for my sake will find it. So often in our culture, we get presented with almost this hippie version of Jesus, where he's all about peace and love and good vibes. But here, Jesus is telling his followers that there is a cost to following him. That Jesus would actually be a dividing line in their relationship with some people. Some of them might need to decide between Jesus and their parents, between Jesus and their family. And some of you've experienced the sting of rejection from those closest to you as you've tried to follow Jesus more closely. Recently, I was reading about some Christians in this area of South Asia that is just marked by persecution of Christians. And these believers, though they are few, they're trying to make disciples in this part of the world. And so they truly make sure that people actually count the cost before they give their life to Jesus. In fact, I came across this baptism questionnaire that people in this area of South Asia would be required to answer before they could be baptized. And again, it's a reminder to count the cost. So the questions before someone would say, yep, I want to give my life to Christ and be baptized, they would ask these questions. Are you willing to leave home and lose the blessing of your father to do this? Are you willing to lose your job? Are you willing to go to the village and those who persecute you, forgive them, and share the love of Christ with them? Are you willing to give an offering to the Lord? Are you willing to be beaten rather than deny your faith? Are you willing to go to prison? Are you willing to die for Jesus? What about you? Are you only following Jesus when it's convenient? When it's easy? Did you really give your life to following Jesus, or you're just giving an hour a week? Does Jesus have all of you? Have you really counted the cost? Jesus closes with these words before he sends his 12 off. And it's a message of reward for those who welcome Jesus' disciples. He says in verse 40, anyone who welcomes you welcomes me. And anyone who welcomes me welcomes the one who sent me. Whoever welcomes a prophet as a prophet will receive a prophet's reward. And whoever welcomes a righteous person as a righteous person will receive a righteous person's reward. And if anyone gives even a cup of cold water to one of these little ones who is my disciple, truly I tell you, that person will certainly not lose their reward. One of the marks of the early church that we see so clearly in the book of Acts, when the church was in its infancy, we see this commitment to radical hospitality, especially to other believers. And I would love to see the church restore that radical hospitality once again. So Matthew chapters 8 and 9 emphasized Jesus' authority over storms, demons, sickness, sin, death. But in chapter 10, we see this transition from Jesus exercising kingdom authority to now Jesus extending kingdom authority through his disciples. And that's where I want to now go back to Matthew chapter 9. If you want to flip back a page, Matthew 9, 35 to 38. It says this, that Jesus went through all the towns and villages, teaching in their synagogues, proclaiming the good news of the kingdom, and healing every disease and sickness. When he saw the crowds, he had compassion on them, because they were harassed and helpless, like sheep without a shepherd. Then he said to his disciples, the harvest is plentiful, but the workers are few. Ask the Lord of the harvest, therefore, to send out workers into his harvest field. I love this passage. I'm always amazed at how Jesus was able to truly see people. We read in this text that when Jesus saw the crowds, he had compassion on them. Like he saw beyond the crowds to the individuals. Picture Jesus in a typical teaching setting. Crowds are coming in and gathering as he's preparing to share with them, and he sees each of them coming in, hurting, hopeless, sick. But he also sees beyond the physical issues to real needs. They need a savior. and he has compassion. Our word compassion comes from a Latin word compassio, which means to suffer with. Jesus suffered with them. I mean, really, that's the incarnation, right? When God taking on flesh, he suffered with us. He felt the pain of this sin-stricken world. But I love the Greek word for compassion. The Greek word for compassion is splachna, and it literally means to feel something in the bowels. It refers to the insides. We would say the guts. Literally, it could be translated as Jesus was moved in the bowels for them. That's a different way to think about a bowel movement, isn't it? Huh? So why that word? Fellas, if you were to go to your wife and say, I love you with all my bowels, that's probably not going to go over well, is it? And she'd be like, go to the bathroom, right? We would instead say, I love you with all my heart. But in biblical times, the heart was the seat of thought and action and will. It's the initiator in Hebrew thinking. The bowels, though, they were the responder or the reactor to what moved a person. And we understand that, though, don't we? Have you ever had a sick feeling in your stomach because of what you've seen? Or maybe how the Spirit is speaking to you? We might call that a gut feeling. As a parent, when a child is truly hurting or sick, you hurt, don't you? When they have pain, you feel it in your gut. It's this awful, gnawing pain. Jesus was moved with compassion, moved inside for these people who he saw as harassed and helpless, like sheep without a shepherd. And so what did he do? Did he go over to each and every one of them, start talking with them one-on-one? Did he begin healing? Did he begin touching the people? I mean, yeah, we see him do that all throughout the New Testament. So yes, he moved to people. He talked to them. He touched them. He healed them. But here in this moment, he turns to his disciples and he says, the harvest is plentiful, but the workers are few. Ask the Lord of the harvest, therefore, to send out workers into the harvest field. Jesus chose to accept much of the limitations of being in a human body. God taking on flesh. Even though he's God, even though he's omnipresent at God, he actually chose to limit himself by space and time. He limited himself to be at only one place at one time. So perhaps the best expression of his compassion was to invest in a few people who would be able to invest in a few more people, who would be able to invest in a few more people, and so on and so forth. Back in early February, I told you that our elders, we've been praying on how God would want to use this church, Rise Christian Church, his church, to specifically build his kingdom. And so at that time, I asked you all to join the elders in fasting and praying. We were asking God to speak to us. We were praying that the leadership of the church would hear from God and then be bold enough to be obedient to where he is taking us. And so today, I want to spend a little bit of time talking about where we believe God is leading us into this next season. As most of you know, our mission at Rise is a very simple mission. We want to be disciples and make disciples. Be disciples, make disciples. Our strategy for carrying that mission out, is to help people begin to know Jesus, believe in him, become a closer follower, and build his kingdom. But this is the new part. So we have a vision of the role we feel called to play in building his kingdom. And it is this. We want to cultivate a discipleship culture, equip ministry leaders, unleash compassion and care, and strengthen church partnerships. So let me talk briefly about what each of these is and some things that we're doing or planning to do as we work toward this vision. So first, we're saying that we want to cultivate a discipleship culture, and hopefully you're already seeing this. Being and making disciples should permeate everything that we do as a church, from our worship services to our children's and student ministries, to our life groups, to our foundations class, to our retreat ministry, to helping people see that they get to be a part of this incredible Jesus mission, that the God of this universe actually wants to use regular people like you and me to build his kingdom. And so we want to cultivate an environment where we are growing as disciples of Jesus Christ and turning around and making more disciples of Jesus Christ in our everyday life. I've said this over and over. One of the things that has most excited me about this church is to see you all participating in making disciples, to see you all bringing someone else along to know, follow, and obey Jesus, to see you all baptizing your friends, your family, your neighbors, your coworkers, and teaching them to obey Jesus. So far in 2026, and we're not even halfway through the year, we have had 71 baptisms. And we got another one coming at the end of the service. And this is the part that blows me away even more. And we've had 64 different people doing the baptizing. Meaning we are seeing so many of you are helping to make disciples. But there are some things that we want to implement, some tools and resources that we want to provide to continue cultivating this discipleship culture. One of the things is we're going to be hosting what I'm calling Rise seminars. About 2 to 3 times a year, we're going to host these things. At these Rise seminars, we're going to bring in some outside speakers, some experts, some people who are much smarter and better communicators than me, who can help train the masses with what I'd call a shot in the arm training. For instance, in the fall, we hope to have someone here to preach on a Sunday morning, and then that evening lead us in a seminar on how to be disciple makers. In February of 2027, I'm super pumped. We're going to be bringing in an expert in apologetics. This is the study of defending the Christian faith. So we're bringing in a man named Frank Turek. Some of you may have even heard of him. He's written quite a few books. One of his excellent books is called I Don't Have Enough Faith to Be an Atheist. And he's very popular online. He was actually training Charlie Kirk in apologetics, and he was with Charlie Kirk when he was assassinated. So we want to bring in people like this to help you be more confident in making disciples in every area of your life. Another thing that we're going to be doing very soon is we're starting something called Rise Cohorts. These are learning communities where we will help people gain a valuable theological foundation. Not so that we can just have knowledge for knowledge's sake, but so we can use those tools to turn around and make disciples. This is practical theology. And so our first Rise cohort is going to be an 8-week cohort. You can see the QR code up there to sign up. You need to sign up by June 11th, but it's going to meet on Thursday mornings at 6:30 in the morning, starting on June 18th. We're going to be learning about how to study the Bible, basic Christian doctrine, and then we're going to do an intro to the Gospels. These cohorts are open to anyone high school and up, but it's going to require a commitment. There's going to be assigned videos that you have to watch before you come to the gatherings. There will possibly be a few assignments that we put into the cohort, and then there is a commitment to being at the cohort and participating in the discussion. So we want to cultivate this discipleship culture. And our goal in this vision is to multiply disciple makers in every facet of community life. In every facet. Another part of our vision is then to equip ministry leaders. So I've been in full-time ministry for over 26 years. I started when I was 5 years old. And I'm kidding. When I first got out of Bible college, I had to compete against very well-qualified Bible college graduates and experienced ministers for church ministry openings. That has dramatically changed over the past couple decades. Over the years, young people have not necessarily been encouraged to go into ministry. And let's be honest, there have been many churches that have treated their ministers poorly. Couple that with the fact that to get a ministry degree pretty much requires you have to go to a private college, and tuition costs are getting out of hand. And that means that there has been a minister shortage. And we want to do something about that. We want to equip people for ministry, for vocational, bivocational, and non-paid non-vocational ministry, paid and unpaid, to do ministry in the church context and in every other context as well. As I said before, these Rise cohorts are a part of that. My goal is that those who go through our cohorts, they would eventually get what would be almost equivalent to having a Bible minor as we study like Old Testament, the New Testament, apologetics, doctrine, theology, etc. Our preaching summit that we host is also a good preparation for ministry, and we've seen some incredible fruit from that. This summer, we're going to be hiring 4 high school ministry interns who are showing some interest in going into ministry. So they'll work with our staff this summer to hopefully clarify if that is or what that calling would look like. We're in talks with someone from our church who is interested in doing a residency at the church this fall. This person who is someone who's thinking about making a career change, walking away from his business to go into vocational ministry. We have a guy named David Stone, one of our life group leaders. You see him up here many Sundays playing bass on our worship team. And as I speak, he is on his way to Africa to minister to people in Kenya on a mission trip. We had a guy here first service. He surprised me. One of my friends, he had been coming to our church for a while and felt called to go into ministry. And he's now the youth minister, the student minister at a great church in Zanesville, North Terrace Church of Christ. And that's so awesome that we could play a part in him going into ministry. Some other things that we're going to be doing would be training in specific areas of ministry. In fact, during our second service, right now, I should say, it is second service, there's a training going on for potential new life group leaders. We want to help people discover where their passion and their giftedness intersect and help people get involved in areas of ministry. And we've been helping some people look into some ministry certificate and degree programs. Overall, we want to raise up servant leaders in the church by establishing ministry training that will equip people to serve in their God-given calling and send people out for kingdom work. Our goal? Multiply workers for the kingdom. Multiply workers for the kingdom. The third part of this vision for Rise is to unleash compassion and care. So I wrestled a little bit with that word unleash, but I actually really liked it. So a leash assumes borders, a range in which you are willing or able to go. We want to move past that range that we're typically comfortable in going and unleash compassion and care by extending it to communities that are underserved. Meaning, we want to reach the oftentimes overlooked and forgotten. Some of this is already beginning to take place as we minister to widows and people in nursing homes and assisted living facilities, as we host Grief Share for those who have experienced the loss and the pain of loss. We just launched Celebrate Recovery earlier this month to help bring the hope of Jesus to people who are battling addictions and life's hurts, habits, and hang-ups. But what would it look like to dream of ways we could unleash compassion and care? Maybe it would mean we have a stronger presence with the Licking County Jail Ministry, which we already support financially. We're looking to start a divorce care group to people who are grieving the loss through a divorce. Maybe it means we put more emphasis on adoption and foster care. We just recently helped two families, or are helping with one, and just recently helped with a family that are adopting children. We want to offer some mission trip opportunities. And one thing that has really been on my heart and the heart of the elders is to begin a disabilities ministry. We want to reach families who are caring for a loved one with special needs, and so often they get overlooked in our community. Our goal with all of this is to embody the heart of Jesus to the world. But it's going to take people. It's going to take a lot of people. And finally, we have a vision to strengthen church partnerships. We do not believe that we are the only church, nor do we believe we have it all together. Far, far from it. We are absolutely a work in progress as we continue to seek God and pursue Jesus more and more. But with humility, we want to help strengthen churches, strengthen the church, capital C church, not just this local fellowship. We want to help churches because we're in on this mission together. So we want to freely share resources with other churches. And some of those resources might be us, people. In fact, just this week, I had a church reach out to me, a church in Johnstown, and they don't have a preaching minister right now. And so they're going to need some men to fill in the pulpit for a while. And so I reached out to 20 men from our church, and I'm hoping that some of them are going to take some rotations and take that opportunity to help that church. We want to be able to send people to preach at other churches, lead worship, teach students, whatever we can do to strengthen churches. We have two of our young ladies, college students, who are doing internships this summer at other churches. They're helping in their worship ministry department. With Jeff Hawkins' new role at our church in counseling, we are offering counseling services to local pastors who are experiencing hard times and discouragement and burnout so that they can keep running the race set before them. And we can help those churches be healthier. And we want to help with church planting. We have money set aside to help with a church plant in the DC metro area. They're just looking for the right church planter. I just reached out to a church that we helped plant back in the fall in Sarasota, Florida, and we have continuing support for them. And I'm going to be visiting that church while I'm on vacation at the end of June. But the church planter was telling me that since Easter, they have been averaging 280 in attendance. And they just started in October. Isn't that awesome? And so I dream of the day when we can have a church planter in residence, meaning we basically hire a person on our staff and they'll play like a utility role in our church. But really what they're doing is they're spending their time working on raising support, discovering where they should plant, building systems and teams, and then we send them. And maybe we send some of you with them to go plant a church. Overall, we want to work toward unity, not competition, because our goal is to expand the kingdom through unity and support. You know, in 2 weeks from today, I'm going to celebrate 5 years here as your senior pastor at Rise Christian Church. And it has been an absolute blessing for me and my family. It has been a blessing to be a part of this congregation. And we've been so blown away to see how God has moved in such powerful, powerful ways, and how he has used so many of you to build his kingdom. It has been exciting to see how far we have come by the grace of God. But if I can be honest with you, I am more excited about what he's about to do. I believe that the best is yet to come. I truly believe that. Jesus said that the harvest is plentiful. Yeah. Jesus said that the harvest is plentiful. I think I recently read a statistic that said about 125,000 people in Licking County alone do not even have a church home. The harvest is plentiful, but the workers are few. There are a lot of people out there who need help. They need compassion. They need Jesus, but there aren't enough people going. And so we are praying that God would send workers into the harvest field. We are praying God would send you and he would send me, because God is up to something big and we're going to want to be a part of it.